Thank you everyone for coming. Today we're going to be talking about business as unusual. It's the new MSP reality. We wanted to have this type of webinar because we were first out of the gate for how to work remotely in a jam, because of COVID. So we felt that we were able to kind of speak to what's coming up now with people thinking about returning to work, depending on which state, which province you're in. There's different states of deconfinement going on, and we thought that with this webinar we'd be able to give you some ideas as to what that reality is going to look like and how you can help your customers get through this and hopefully come out ahead from this. In this webinar, and that's kind of funny because we see our pictures here. We can kind of see the toll that COVID has done on our on our looks. So we have Michael Slater, head of pre-sales, which is one of the many hats he's wearing right now, and myself. I'm Alex Laflamme. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said correct. I call myself director of shiny objects right now. So anything needs attention.
And I'm the Modern Workplace subject matter expert, which is a very fancy title for everything M365 and everything cloud. So today the agenda is really going to be about the timing that right now is very important to start talking about these subjects with your customers and potential customers, how you can do certain things to become a strategic consultant, how you're going to lead your customers through business transformation, and then Mike will take over to talk about the change management and how you can take the next step. So right. as we just talked about, business as usual just really doesn't exist anymore. From one company to the next, your colleagues, your family, you talk about how their work is going. No one goes to the office 9 to 5 anymore, and there's very little chance that that world will come back. So businesses do need to adapt more quickly than ever. And when we're talking about adapting, it's really about the social distanciation, people working from anywhere, needing to access all of their devices. So technology has the biggest role in this to help those businesses transform. So therefore, MSPs or VARs or any other IT companies have to play a strategic role in order to help their clients succeed in this new world. You do have access to all the tools that you need, both from ShareWeb and Microsoft. So you are fully equipped to help them do this. And with what we're going to go through, we're going to help you have the talking points and the conversation and the other tips that you need to use those tools correctly. So the first thing we have to understand is what is business transformation? Because you think, hey, it's just changing the business, but it really is about. Sorry, this thing's in my way. It really is about changing a company's system, processes, anything that the business relied on internally, like how you were contacting your customers before, how customers are reaching out to you before, where there are people walking in, how you did the marketing, the campaigns in the newspapers, things like that. So you have to kind of look at the whole new world and see how you're going to be able to compete more effectively and how to be more efficient. Effectiveness and efficiency are two different things, even though they sound very similar and they have the same root. Being efficient is a lot about honing your skills, your processes, making sure that the things that you know how to do take less time. And effectiveness is about having more impact. A lot of companies focus on just the efficiency. They're talking about improving their processes. They're talking about reducing, certain steps in workflows, but they forget about the effectiveness aspect of it. So you have to make sure that whenever you're having those conversations with potential clients, that you're tackling both aspects at once and not showing them, how to do more activities that don't lead to money. You have to show them how to help to get to those clients. And here. So as we were saying before, you're more than just an IT shop. A lot of you are probably still in the more break fix, value added reseller type model. which for decades was the only model available. It wasn't until the cloud model in the early 2010s came out that the other model of managed service provider began to emerge. So if you're still in the break fix model, it's very simple. Something breaks, they call you, you issue them a bill, and that's it. So you have to kind of pray that things break for it to work. It's not a great model, although you've probably been very busy in the last few months with potential clients or clients that haven't, made the switch to the cloud. A managed service provider.
I also like this, Alex, to interject really quickly. I always refer to that as, in your business, do you make your money from gigantic splashes of income? Like, are you on the capital expense side? Because if you are, and that's what you're chasing, then you're definitely still a break fix, even though you might not have like a traditional IT shop with your $70 an hour, $150 on site model. You still are. Just keep that in mind, right? Because again, you're living and dying by large projects. That's all.
Yeah, and it's truth telling time, right? You have to do a gut check. You can't, you can tell everyone else that you're an MSP, but inside your own company, the things that you do, so that you may not be to that level yet. And the bad news is that even if you are an MSP right now, this model is the one that's starting to become obsolete as well. For a long time, the last like 5-6 years, it was great to come up with some sort of recurring plan with your customers. You have bundles, you have them all set up together with all the products that they're asking for. Some bit of a markup, professional services here and there, and then you have the money coming in each month. Nothing is breaking, so you get that recurring revenue. Things are good.
Totally.
Because of what happened with COVID and how it dramatically accelerated the time frame for a lot of companies to move to the cloud, this model is at risk. If you're not being proactive with clients, other companies are being proactive. If you're not looking at ways to become a business transformation leader for your clients, they're going to find somebody else that will. It's pretty tough because again, like we're all dealing with a lot of other challenges right now, family wise and just living wise. But for your business to see the next year and the next few years successfully, you have to shift to being a business transformation leader. I believe we may be able to present our first poll for our attendees right now to kind of see where they see themselves right now. It's anonymous, so if you answer that you're on the break fix side, we're not going to be, naming and shaming you. So don't worry about that. But it's really
the point of this is really, again, just use the information you just learned, the insight. Understanding what those three models look like, we'll definitely explain a little bit more as we go on, just to get an idea where you stand, and again, just get an idea of what our audience is, because it'll help us focus this a little bit more into things that are relevant topic-wise to you.
Precisely, because once we give you all these tips and all of that, as with your own clients, there's no one size fits all, right? So you want to have those conversations that fit exactly your business model and your client's business models.
And so far the stats are coming in, guys. We're gonna give it another 15 seconds before we close the polling. So guys, please, if you have a couple seconds, just tap the one that fits the best. I know that a couple of you guys are, we call it inattentive. That means having another tab open. We understand you're busy, but we'd love to get your participation if possible.
Yeah. I'd love to be doing something else at the same time right now, like I do on some calls, but no. I think you close the poll and then we're able to kind of see the results.
Excellent, guys. So poll is closed. So very interesting. So what we kind of pulled up is a mix of different results. So it looks like we're at 6% full-time break fix, 46% hybrid of break fix and MSP, 27% identify as a full MSP, and 21% as a business transformation leader. And this is interesting because this isn't the first time we've done this webinar. We've seen a wide variety of results, which I always find so interesting. And the last one we did, we had a lot of people identifying in the business transformation leader category, right? Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because we always get different crowds, different audiences, right? So we always like to run this poll to get an idea of who we're talking to. And we feel like a lot of people who are in this hybrid model, now's a great time to take some learnings from this to kind of figure out if you really can find a different way to move forward, something that's a little bit more secure and something that's going to ensure the longevity of your business. So it's interesting as a conversation point.
Yeah, you can skip from break fix all the way to business transformation leader, and jump over the MSP part.
Correct.
That'd be good. Otherwise, here's some tips on how to start, becoming a strategic consultant. The first thing that we do want to recommend heavily is always to try to do some sort of assessment and audit of everything that they have right now. The worst thing you want to do is recommend something that they already have that you weren't aware of, or recommend something that will completely not work with what they have already right now. One of these assessments should be a security-based assessment, and we do have one that we can provide for you freely as well, so you can start using those types of tools. Otherwise, within the M365 Admin Center, there's a section, Security and Compliance, that includes the Microsoft Secure Score. If you have included all the devices, or even without the devices, it'll assess the environment and give you a numbered score, and will give you a recommended path to improving that secure score. The easiest example I can give you is that for the tenant, if you do not have MFA enabled for the users, that would be the first recommendation from the secure score, and it would be able to bring your score up to a much more comfortable level of security. Once you have those assessments all done, you want to create a strategic and technological roadmap with your clients. This isn't a lift and shift. We're going to do one thing and everything's going to be great. As part of being a business transformation leader, you want to be part of that journey with your clients. You want to talk about the different phases. Tip 3, you want to hold those quarterly business reviews with them to kind of show, we were there. This was our state last quarter. This is where we are now. This is what we've improved. This is how much productivity we've gained. Like we mentioned at the beginning, all these, you have all the tools available to you from Microsoft within the admin center to use as a partner to your clients without having to spend any extra money that you're spending right now. You just want to bring more value to your clients. Whenever you look at those same reports, there's analytics out there. There's even the My Analytics that's available to all the users that can tell your users, how much they're working at night or during the weekend when they're not supposed to, and what things that they can do to remediate that and have a better work-life balance.
Yes, the great email of shame. It has very profound effects on me, let me tell you.
Yes. Yes, I think for May, it recommended I take 3 Saturdays off, I think the second poll would be ready to kind of show, because I think this is what we're going to be talking about as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. So we pulled up another poll, guys. We'd love to have your participation again. Very important to us. The focus on this poll is really to decide. So, let's hypothetically say we're going forward with the idea that we need to move from an MSP, or maybe from a break fix, or maybe from a hybrid of both, into more of a business transformation leader. What part of this process is the biggest challenge for you, right? When you sit there and you think, if I have a discussion with a client, what am I the least comfortable to take on? Is it the security aspect? Is it the collaboration aspect? Is it the change management aspect? What are the biggest challenges you're facing right now? We appreciate your response time. We'll leave this poll open until we get to about another minute or 80% participation. Thank you, guys.
And it's like, yeah, and what question is this client potentially going to ask that I really don't want him to ask?
That's a great way to look at it, right? What is the weakness, right? What's the chink in your armor? We need to kind of figure out exactly what ails you to figure out what the best ways to fix it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe just to go back a little bit at the same time for tips, because all these things keep coming, right? Just this morning, the YouTube channel for Microsoft 365 had a success story about I believe it was called like Mercy for Housing. It's a low-income housing company in California. And when you're thinking, housing, like this is everything on site and manual and analog, but through business transformation with teams, they were able through COVID to not only maintain their operations but actually improve productivity and efficiency at the same time, so that they're able to serve all those people that are hurt even more because of COVID. That's on the Microsoft channel right now. It's a 5-minute story. It can give you some ideas, because it's very important whenever you want to be a strategic consultant that you're thinking about your clients, and instead of being reactive, and hearing their pain points, you want to be proactive and go on YouTube, go on, read the news, see what other companies are doing to adapt to this new reality, what kind of programs they're using, how they're deploying certain products that you're already familiar with. There's another one from Microsoft 365 that talked about the onboarding process for a company that used to take about 2 weeks because of all the different departments that had to be involved to properly onboard an employee, and that with Teams and Power Automate, they were able to create an app within Teams that took care of all that process. So from 2 weeks, they went down to 2 hours to be able to onboard a client. So if you're that MSP wanting to become a business transformation leader, and you go to your client and you say, hey, how's the onboarding process for you? Do you think maybe we could automate certain things? Are there a lot of repetitive tasks? Those types of questions will make you, a huge value for those clients.
All right, guys, the polls are now closed, so we'll take a quick look at the results. Very interesting. So there's really an even match here. We're really equal part security, equal part productivity and collaboration, equal part change management. So it's really an interesting crowd where everybody's facing a somewhat different challenge. Multiple reasons for this. One could be just, we've noticed that a lot of people usually adapt one aspect of this and they run with it, right? Especially people that are more in that hybrid or full MSP mode already. They already have their focus on security, right? They already have their focus on collaboration, telephony, teamwork, or they might have a really strong project management background, so they really establish a good change management practice. But the fact is, you really need to focus on having an offer for all three, because in the new MSP reality we live in, they're all equally important. You can't just have one. You might be able to get away with two if you're particularly strong in both of those, but in reality, you need to have at least a baseline understanding of all three to be successful.
Yeah, it's a bit like, if you think about it, for say basketball, many years ago, if you were just tall, you're going to be a great power forward, or if you were just quick, you'll be be great at dribbling or stealing. But nowadays they have to be all around athletes. LeBron James has to be able to shoot a 3-pointer, and all these other athletes, they have to have all the parts at the same time instead of just one focus. So it's a bit like that for the MSP world, where they were able to focus before on one thing, but now they have to be well-rounded. Fortunately, if you don't have all these arrows in your quiver, partnering with a CSP like SureWeb can help fill those gaps. And obviously this isn't the topic of this of this webinar, but just to let you know, like you're not completely on your own if you don't know how to, if there's one aspect that's missing for you. For the security part, we did have an assessment that we've created, so we really want to help you. This assessment is not gated, so you are free to try it out as many times as you want. The information is not recorded or stored anywhere, so you can put in real information to have real assessments for your clients. And to have that conversation with them, if there's any of these small business owners that think that because they're too small, they're not going to be the target of cyber attacks, let them know that they're flipping a coin here. Almost half of the cyber attacks are targeting small business owners. Why? Because usually they don't care. They haven't set up all the proper security features that usually come with the solutions that they're purchasing. So you have to talk to these clients. You have to let them know that they are very juicy targets for those attacks. Perhaps one way to help them understand it is that instead of saying like, why would they target me? They don't target you. They cast a very wide net of businesses like yours, and through those phishing attempts, they're able to get a 10% success rate. And if you're part of that 10% of those companies that didn't get those settings done, you're likely not going to recover. 75% of businesses that are victims of ransomware attacks do not recover.
Yeah, so, and that's why the focus has to be, and usually the simplest way to put it into a term that's practical for people is, nobody thinks they're going to be the subject of spear phishing, which is a directed attack. Well, let me tell you, working at SureWeb, we have some fantastic people in the black hat area of the world that constantly hit us. I get really creative emails all the time from people attempting to spear phish SureWeb, just because, again, we fit that mid-market enterprise target, right? So they're always looking for an in, they're looking at LinkedIn, they're crafting tailored social engineering tactics against us, right? And that does happen. But what people always forget is that specific targeted cyber attacks. There is that wider net, right? It's much in the same way people make viruses to appeal to everybody, right? That's why that old adage that we all familiar about how Apple doesn't get virus. Well, it does, but the issue is that it's not what the majority of people use, especially for business. So it's more of a fact that people always cater to the lowest common denominator, and the very is true of cyber criminals. So people need to keep that in mind, right? That's an easy way to explain that. Just to be like, just because you're not a Fortune 500 company doesn't mean that you would not make a fantastic botnet to attack other people. There's lots of stuff they can get from there, right? Even if it goes undetected forever, which is one of the worst case scenarios. Not everybody's just going to hit you with a blocker, right? Some people want to keep you running and get more data and farm more information that way, which I think is even worse.
Yeah, and also the in that same line, like the crypto jacking, you wouldn't even know that there are in your systems. All they're doing is bleeding resources to their own end.
Correct.
If you're trying to improve productivity and collaboration, this is more on the educational side. You have to know your stuff, not to use another S word. You have to make sure that you are, preaching your own, you're eating your own chowder. And most of partners, most of MSPs, do qualify for at least an action pack, if not a silver competency from Microsoft. So you are getting all these internal use right licenses that you're not paying for. You have no excuse. You have to learn how to use them. Fortunately, and in a sense, I mean, it's more of a silver lining in this case. We've been speaking with a lot of partners ever since COVID hit, and they had to work remotely, 100% of the time instead of, on a project basis. They've become evangelists of M365. They've become team super experts because before they were just using it, to chat a little bit or to do a meeting here and there, but now it's their main platform of what they're using. If you're doing that internally and you're going to see your clients that already have those products but are not using them to the full extent that they should, you're able to quickly show them everything that they're not doing correctly. So your value goes up tremendously. There's lots of companies out there that help with the training. We do have some options as well at ShareWeb. We really like the crew from Brainstorm that produce Quick Help. We feel that the morsels for the users, because end users, they want to know one thing. They don't want the whole speech. They don't want the whole course. So to have just bite-sized pieces of information for them so that they can get to that next level with Excel, Word, Outlook, even PowerPoint to learn some tricks about how to get a slideshow going without it obscuring your whole screen. It's great stuff to know about. And whenever they're not using the productivity and especially the collaboration that's available with M365, they're really just kind of working double. If your clients are still working on a document separately and then sending it to the other members of the team as an attachment via email, and then everyone else adds their notes and then sends the document back, you're doing it wrong, like way wrong. You should upload that document in Teams, create a Teams for those people, and you can see everyone working on that document at the same time live with their cursors. It's just so much better. So you have to know the tools that you're using and how you're going to help them increase their productivity. Again, this isn't going to be costing them any more money, but it's going to improve your loyalty status. It's going to give you a lot of loyalty currency with them because you really have their best interests at heart. And this is we felt like, I feel like I should kind of give the slide after, so it can help, because as we mentioned, we have a bit of a different crowd, different people where they are. I felt that this slide showed a great way that even if your goal is digital transformation and being a business transformation leader, there's still a lot of different ways to go about it. It comes back to what I was saying earlier, like there's not a one size fits all for being a business transformation leader and how to transform a business. So depending on which industry and horizontal that your clients may be, going to them and talking about improving their whole HR department with a mix of Dynamics 365 with M365 together so that they're all natively integrated and that they can be run from the cloud without having any type of breaches in security. That's, that's one way to do it. If you have a business that was mostly analog at the time and they were still using, pen and paper to write notes, and they had lists and charts and a billboard for and people like timestamping on a machine that actually made sound, you may want to do like the full transformational and reimagine their business fully. So you start with a whiteboard and you say, okay, 6 months from now, a year from now, your worker, how is it going to look like his day to day? We have tons of material. Microsoft has come out with tons of a day in the life of different users in different verticals, different industries, and how their day looks like when they're using those tools fully. And this brings, I think, me to the next part, which is going to be Mr. Slater.
Hey, folks. So, as part of this webinar series, and this is something I've been thinking about a long time, what's valuable to our partner base? What's something that we can try to condense that's a very complex idea and work into something that's a little bit more digestible, in the nature of nobody has time to read an entire encyclopedia anymore, or all of Wikipedia for that matter on a subject, but everybody likes to hear their 5 amazing tips for making mixed drinks on the patio of the summer. So much in that same way of carrying the lowest common denominator, we've taken change management, which is a rather complex concept, and tried to distill some actionable items that most MSPs can do quickly. First off, just to cover change management, top bottom, I give you the university definition of it. So change management is a structured approach to transitioning individuals, teams, and organizations from one state to another. So what's really important here is it really captures what the previous slide says, right? It's taking customers from an old state, right, using digital sales, modern tactics in your MSP or your digital transformation business, and taking them to a future state, which is that optimized, lean and mean machine where they're taking care of what they do best, and you're using your sphere of competence as an MSP to support that change. So going forward, next slide, sir. The goal here is for us to kind of focus on what can we do? What can we action for sure? How can we make a direct impact today? When we go forward with this exercise and we do this investment, the first thing we need to look at is just understanding adoption and change management and the reasons why people don't tend to succeed or why it's such a challenge in the first place. One of the biggest issues we run into is why people don't change. People usually resist change, by nature. It's a nature of humanity. I'm sure that when the first Model Ts were cruising down the dirt roads, the blacksmith said, oh, this will never get rid of my business. People will be using horses forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
People tend to be stubborn. People tend to focus on what works today, and they don't have a lot of hindsight for tomorrow, especially when they're in a crisis situation like they are right now. So that's the assumption we have to make. Change, for the most part, is perceived by people as being good or bad, and you never know until the org you get there which side of the HR factor you're going to be on. That's just a fact. Another thing that's of great concern is shadow IT. So this is especially prevalent in pre-digital transformation organizations that have basically used modern workarounds. A great real-life example is one time I sat with a very large meat packing company, a $6 billion company that trades meat like a stock exchange, all over to different businesses, different distributors, different restaurants, everything. And they basically made a CRM, which is a combination of an Excel sheet and Google Docs, right? They just built themselves using free residential Skype. And that was their entire management system for outreach and contacting their clients in a $1 billion industry, right? Because they had it modernized, because they had an embraced centralized system. This spreadsheet was located in one guy's account, so if it ever went away, all this data would be lost. There would be no control over who owns what. It was chaos, right? This is a great example of that, where people basically have to use their own things to make stuff work. So you can have multiple communication tools, multiple email tools, multiple people putting data in different areas, and it all leads to a mess of problems that we've just addressed, especially from a security point of view. So change management is to limit that risk. Another aspect of this is that teams in general is being treated as kind of the panacea, right? It's the universal medicine for everything. If I just move on to this, people will stop complaining about their link server and we'll never have this issue ever again. In reality, it's a lot more than a technical migration. There's also a change process element of this, right? Because teams can do so many different things. People have to understand how it works. They have to understand you can edit documents live. People have to understand you can build tabs that actually can incorporate third-party tools. People have to understand it can integrate with Planner and all these other different tools that are in your 365 licensing. So you're not really just doing a technical change, you're doing a change in the way that people operate business processes. So this is something that people have to approach. You know, they're not just getting teams to go remotely, they have to also get teams to unlock all the features of it to ensure it stays for a long time within that organization. And lastly, it's very hard to standardize on these things as well too. Every org is a little bit different. Almost no two businesses are the same. You can standardize on a vertical for sure, and that's what we advise all of our partners to do.
Mm-hmm.
But as you standardize in that vertical, you have to realize that every single deployment will be slightly different. And that's why following the tips we have in the next few slides will show you why it's so important, how you can preempt that change and deliver something that will fit for your clients.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yep.
So something I always like to is kind of talk a little bit about how customer success, at the heart of it, what it really means when you go and have these conversations is that it's not just the sum of its parts. It's more than that, right? So it's technology and people change, resulting in a fantastic deployment that helps. So when we do approach it, there's two different behaviors we want you to look for. Number one is the technical deployment. Number two is the change management aspect of it. So we want to make sure that on the technical side, everything is done. We're working with the IT decision makers. We're working on the workload adoption. We're kind of building a technical case, right? We're talking to the CTO or the decision maker, the person that's in charge of that, right? Change management, however, requires slightly different focus, right? Change management really is a people change, it's a process change. Technology is a tool in that case, maybe even a catalyst, but at the end of the day, the change has to occur on the person level. So that's organizationally wide perspective changes. That's customer success managers, that's working with business decision makers, so people that have a stake in the business and see the entire capsule of everything, not just the sum of the technological parts, and the people that have to breed that culture change on the inside, where we need to focus on making people want to embrace this change. And we'll talk a little bit on how to practically implement that in the next couple of slides. So another factor we have to do is we have to kind of understand the perceived value in the gap. So one of the main reasons why we find partners usually have struggle in this and they don't tend to succeed is because they usually focus on is the stuff that they're used to dealing with. So the two things we notice that partners do really well is usually deployments, right? People have been doing email migrations for decades. People have been implementing new systems for decades. They've changed from old analog phones to VoIP phones. You know, they've gone from on-prem servers to cloud servers. All this stuff is being done. And most of our partners know about that part, especially on the technical side, they're ACEs. So that part's usually always achieved. The second part is activation. So it's basically making sure that people convert to new technology. So switching them from on-prem Office to Office 365 or Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Office 365, whatever it gets called that day, right? So people will often buy that product because they're told to, but you know that's just an activation. That's just feeding into your competency, into SureWeb's competency as well too, and that's succeeding as a channel. But it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to meet the following two aspects, which is usually not achieved or poorly achieved in some cases. That's adoption. So very often we have cases where MSPs sell technology into a new client, and then those services go away within 6 months. Because again, if they're not shown how to do stuff, and from a people context, people don't embrace the change and see the value, they're simply not going to use it. If you're selling someone an E3 and they're really only ever going to be using Outlook, it's a very hard value prop to justify that price tag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to kind of focus on, well, what else can we do with that, right? Or even if you're going to go to E5, like you need to talk about Intune, you need to talk about EMS, you need to talk about security. These are conversations we need to have. Go ahead.
It's just because what you were talking about reminded me of my my onboarding at SureWeb myself, because I came in from like many years ago from a different industry, not non-technology.
Yeah.
And I think like my first couple of days, you know, someone was showing me around, okay, here's the different programs, here's the CRM, here's how you create a lead, and it was, you know, you're like, okay, great, it works great when you do it. And then it took a month before I even opened those programs again, you know, so
Right.
there was no tracking of the adoption at the time. Whereas nowadays, any new SureWeb employee that's shown those products and those features, with the analytics, with the reports, we can see them actually adopting them and using them. And Microsoft's been really good about that for the dashboards to kind of show the penetration of the different services within M365 and how they're being used.
Correct. And the other factor we have to talk to as well, and you kind of touched on this, the proficiency factor, right? So not only do people have to use something, people have to feel they're getting value out of what they're using, right? You can't simply give somebody a car and then say, look, it's brand, it's new, and it's shiny. Look at it, it smells great too. If they don't know how to drive it, it's not going to get very far. What you just touched on, right? How do you onboard new people to this product? You know, how can you get people to change their behavior to fully leverage the solutions they're paying for? That's another aspect we need to talk about, and that'll be touched in my tips coming up in our next couple slides. I keep on tantalizing this, so I better deliver on it, right, Alex?
Yeah. I presume that meant next slide too. Yeah.
Correct. So Microsoft basically Teams, again, really the entire ecosphere, everything for 365, it's really about a change in behavior. It's more than a set of products. It's about finding a way to modernize work. That's why it's called modern workplace, right? Because again, we need to shift from the shackles of the technology and the processes we had in the past and find new ways to work together in the future that none of us could perceive 5 months ago. So that's a big focus, and that's how we think HCM is the way to do it right now. I actually, by future-proofing thing, I'm very skeptical of that. I think you can't, but I think what you can do is you can be future prepared, and that's what I want the value of our partners to get out of this discussion.
I like that, future prepared. You may hear me say that on the call later.
No problem. So all in all, ACM is fantastic. Reduces customer risk, increases partner value, right? So the customers are happy with what they're buying, and the partners feel like, again, their value is being shown. Something that we didn't really touch on so much during this part of the webinar, but I will talk about now because we have a chance, is that what sucks as a business transformation leader or an MSP is that when everything works, it's harder to prove your value. And that's almost the cold irony of it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That when everything's working, there's no cyber attacks, everything is secure, and the customer runs business as normal, you sometimes have a really hard time justifying the price tags for the solutions you're selling. It's that insurance allegory you used before, right, Alex? Remember that? I like that one a lot.
Like that one a lot. Yeah, it's whenever like whenever you're trying to tell somebody about the benefits of insurance. I'm like, yes, but I'm not sick right now. No one's having an accident or anything. Why should I pay that? And then I tell them, I'm very, very happy to say that I've wasted all the money I've ever paid on insurance, because the other potential outcome would have been that I got sick, I died, I got hurt, and I needed to use that insurance. So it's you're paying for something that you hope to never use, and it's very hard to get that across on the MSP side. And I feel that because of COVID and everything, and how business owners are really actively looking right now for other solutions and ways to address their pain points, that the MSP model just kind of wait and show them a report isn't going to work. You have to be active. You have to have long-term projects, so that on those months when nothing breaks, you can still call them and show them the progress that you've done for where you're going.
Correct. That's great. Alex, next slide. Beautiful. So now we're gonna get into my practical tips just to kind of get you guys up and running really quickly. Now, these are all designed under the mind that you don't have infinite time, infinite HR, or infinite money, right? So these are some quick things you could do that'll kind of be able to help you kind of get going. So the first 4 set of tips focus on the adoption phase of this, right? So the first thing I always say very early on and to do often is to set the customer vision. Use that vision then to set a realistic expectation. So talk to your customers about what they want, where they want to get to, and quickly ID upfront exactly what you can and can't do. Sometimes people envision something that they can't get because all of us in the technology field, we sell everybody on this future with the rose-tinted glasses, but in reality, some things we can and can't do. So as far as goes for adoption, set the expectations for something realistic right away, something they can change. They'll have the biggest impact immediately. We all deal with customers that have pipe dreams. Be sure that you focus down on what you can actually do in this implementation that they'll feel within the next quarter of that purchase and that change happening. Focus on the short-term wins. That's usually what matters, especially in a crisis economy like we're in right now. Mm-hmm. The second thing I say is always get the top-down approach. So it's not enough for you simply just to sell this product to the CX level, but you need to get everybody on board. So you want to make sure that you can generate excitement about this process. Address in meetings, ask to speak with the users of these technology, the people in specific roles that you need to interface with. Sell them on the idea as well too. If you can ensure some top-down buy-ins and secure some champions, it's going to go a long way into you making sure that you stay in that organization for a long time. Something that some people do and some people don't, so I'm reiterating it here again, is to set up an end-user training program. So you can utilize tools like Quick Help. You could build your own practice, or you can outsource to trainers. But regardless, you need to have a way to make sure that people understand how to use the technology they're buying. You simply can't just activate them, give them their credentials for the 365 portal, and just say have fun. They need to know what they can do, what they can't do, and how these things work. Especially if you're using the more complex things. If you're using business voice, like you definitely have to show them how their phone system works. That's a massive part of telecom. You can't just leave that on the table. They have to know, or they're going to complain how much they miss their old Nortel system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or their old analog system, unless you clearly define that. And that could, again, cause you problems in the long term for the longevity of the client. Another aspect, again, is to socialize this change proactively within an organization. So some easy things you could do is send out teaser emails, send out previews, talk about some of the efficiencies they're going to experience. See if you can get something that the CX level can share with everybody. And we understand that everybody has a massive team they're selling to. In some cases, it could be 5-person companies. But make sure that every single person, not just the owner, sees the potential value in their efficiency internally. How much time is this going to save me in a week? How much of this task can I automate? How much will I be able to actually focus on revenue generating tasks instead of administrative tasks by utilizing this new suite of technology? Socialize it early and often. It's a big part of the people part of change.
Yeah, and what you're saying about the champions, we've lived it internally. There was a few changes that were made with technology where I initially was a normal person, resisted change, wasn't, that happy about, how these things were changing until a colleague of mine came up to me and said, "Oh no, wait, no, you don't understand. This is super awesome. This is going to solve this, and that." And just by, talking with that champion, at the water cooler very quickly, my whole outlook on how this new software was going to work for me was, just 180, just like that.
Is this champion James Sawyer?
No, it's Luke.
Okay, because I thought this was the Office 365 conversation again. I'm like, I can't escape that, can I? Anyway, onward. So this part will focus on the practical ways to measure the success of this change, right? So there's a lot of tools you can do, There's a lot of stuff you can do and tools you can utilize, right? So stuff that you can do as the managed service provider or as the business transformation expert, or tools you can use within Microsoft 365. So organizational, one way is to track engagement on platforms, right? You get a lot of analytical tools that management can use to view to see what people are up to, right? So you can pitch that as part of your process. You can see like, well, you used to do this process in this amount of steps. Using these tools, you've reduced it this much per step, thinking that you guys will save a time value of, let's say a minute per transaction. It sounds small, but if you're doing 1,000 transactions in a month, that frees up quite a bit of time, right? Another aspect we can do is looking at the individual contribution. So you can get these great emails. We talked about a little bit earlier in your analytics, right? Judging to see how much time you're spending collaborating, how much time you're focusing on your work, and who you're talking to in your team. It gives a certain sense of self-reflection that I think people get a lot of value out of to see exactly what they're doing in their week. Because time is an investment, and this is a great way to see exactly how you're spending your money. It's almost like a finance tracker, like a Mint or an Intuit platform, but just for your time spent. Because I always like to preach that time is the one resource we can't buy more of. And we talked a little about the other things that are lacking. You can always hire more people, and money comes and goes. But time always marches on. Another aspect is the cultural shift. So we can use some of the technology to revisit customer experience. A great example of this we can use is, again, business voice. Do you have a clunky, disjointed telephone experience? How many calls does somebody have to make to actually get through, right? If we shift over to Teams and people using a brand new modern PBX within 365, how much time can we cut down? How much more customers can we call in a day? How much more people can we handle? That's a great customer experience factor, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but if I call a business and I get put on hold, or I go to voicemail hell or any of those other places, I don't do business with them. I just call their competitor that answers right away, right? Important thing to keep in mind. And the last part is the economic impact, right? So especially if you can reduce multiple tools, let's say they have a messaging application they get from this vendor, they go and they get their, Microsoft volume licensing for their on-prem needs. They have email through this particular vendor, and then they go to this guy to get this product for voice. If it's a mess and we can consolidate it, we can actually do an economic change. So again, that's the value of really the 365 ecosphere, is that once you start to buy multiple services and use multiple services within that platform, you can do way, way more with less money. So you might be able to actually build a report to say, hey, look, we looked at all your existing spend. If we just shift over this to 365, long term, we're actually going to save you guys money as an operating expense instead of a capital expense with these weird recurring fees of multiple vendors. So it's a really quick way to make a tangible impact on their bottom line. And you can measure that very easily by just comparing bills. So that's
Yeah.
a good practical tip.
And a lot of times these extra solutions and other tools were not supplied by the MSP. The client was getting them elsewhere. So you're creating new revenue streams for you at the same time and increasing your control of that customer relationship, thereby reducing your risk that he would eventually look elsewhere for solutions because you're providing everything. So it's just a snowball of win-win-win.
Yep. Next slide. So last thing we need to kind of address is the management aspect of change management. So I know that this is probably one of the ones that I know a lot of people come back and they say, but Mike, I can't hire somebody immediately. I get it. But to have a customer success manager, either as a part-time position that someone with a current role already does, or that somebody can hire a full-time role, will do a lot of good for your organization in maintaining the longevity of your client relationships. Because this person basically focuses on managing customer outcomes to the maximum success for both the customer and for you as the partner. So these are the guys that help onboard. These are the guys that can deal with quick questions. These are the guys that really can kind of manage the process of getting up to date and this digital transformation ask. Again, it doesn't have to be somebody full-time. This can be a part-time person, right? We see it in a lot of smaller MSPs. There's usually a support manager that'll wear that hat part-time, or a sales rep if they have them that wear the hat part-time, that makes sure that their customers are retained and happy, right? Because again, if it's an amazing thing in the channel that we've noticed that if a customer buys something directly from a vendor, usually the duration of service is like 12 months. If they buy the same product from a channel partner, even if they don't have this in place, right? This is just without any of this in place, they'll usually stay on board for 2.5 years. If we can add a customer success manager, we can maybe potentially double that time, looking up to 5 years. So again, it's always easier to maintain your current client base and keep them happy than it is to find new ones. So as we go through this transformation, this role is very much a key part of keeping what you have right now and optimizing it for the future. Another aspect of change management that I would like to address is kind of that buy-in we talked about earlier. Develop a pitch to 2 different groups, figure out a way to sell this to your vertical you deal with. Like, what do the people in your industry like to hear at a leadership level? And then also focus, again, collecting real life customer data off maybe some friendly end users, what do end users like to hear? What are their pains in your vertical? How can you fix their pain? So focus on those 2 aspects and have a speech ready for both. Because if you use one speech for everything, you're not going to get the complete buy-in, right? Especially if you go to user groups or you have multiple levels you need to talk to. My advice is just have 2, one for the CX level and one for the user level. It doesn't take a lot of time, and if you can separate them, it'll do you a world of good in getting those champions in the door. Next thing I can say is practical and useful is take Microsoft's free adoption course. So if you just Google Microsoft ACM, the first result is going to be to a course you can take that's going to give you a lot of insight into how Microsoft perceives it. It's very specific to their products, but I highly advise that you guys go take a look. If you're in the Microsoft ecosphere, it's worth your time investment. So go take the course, get a quick little certification. It'll do you the world of good. And the last ditch effort is, so let's say that all 3 of these things don't work for you and you're saying, hey, I just don't have the time to do this. Time is my most precious resource. What can I do? If you can't manage it in-house, work with a friendly peer. I think the MSP industry is so interesting because I've never seen such a spirit of co-opetition, right? For people that in the traditional industry, unless they're working, across the street from each other fighting over customers, but if you find someone outside of your immediate geographic area, it's really easy to partner up with, right? MSPs tend to find different verticals, different products, different solutions they're comfortable with, and they tend to work with one another, right? There's guys that we deal with that are IS experts, right? That then will shop out their telecom deals to someone else that knows more about that particular type of technology and vice versa. So we have a lot of these connections at SureWeb. We're more than happy to make these introductions. It's one of the values of joining a partner network like SureWeb is that we can put you in contact with somebody not in the same geographic area as you, that you guys can work together to secure deals. That's a big thing that we do. I see emails like this going out, like I'd say what, Alex, like 2 or 3 times a day sometimes, maybe more.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's a big part of what we do here.
Definitely daily. Yeah.
Excellent. Next slide. So this is what I'm kind of including to kind of answer a question that we sometimes we permanently get after we give this presentation is, what are the next steps? So let's say I do want to go and do something. Not a problem. Here are some great places you can go get a change management certifications. Now, these are the ones that Microsoft recommends. The ProSki methodology, or Proxy, sorry, I might probably mispronounce that, is what Microsoft uses itself, but you have a bunch of options, right? So you have Change First, you have the Association of Change Management Professionals, and you have the Change Management Institute. So these are all 4 things that Microsoft recommends. I personally haven't taken any of these either, but generally speaking, my friends in the industry that have recommend these guys as well too. So feel free to Google any one of these. It's a fantastic place to get started, and I'd highly recommend it in case you guys want to take the next step and add this as a professional offering into your stack. So feel free. We'd love you guys to go and take it, and this is our best recommendation for that.
Because there's an actual science behind it. It's a bit like, somebody might be a great cook on the barbecue and they just, kind of learn themselves and they just throw mixes in there. But there is an actual recipe to get the best barbecue ribs out there, and these guys have it.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree, because like not everybody's gonna be good at everything, but what you can do is you can add to your sphere of confidence and your sphere of competence, and expand yourself a little. And I think that change management really is the thing that apparently 33% of the people here in this room struggle with right now. So highly advise it. So this is a resource one pager we're going to be sending out. So these are all Microsoft focused resources, but hey, we're going to give it to you guys. This just kind of clicks. You can take a look at all the different places you can find it. And this has a bunch of the stuff we talked about, right? Everything from the specific ACM course to the partners with Proski to all the different usage analytics you can take. Feel free to use this slide, click through. You guys will get a lot of value. This is really, really, I think, worth your time. So long and the short is, we've gone through all this conversation. We talked about all these fantastic ways you can potentially improve your life. What are the next steps? So what I always say is every single great action in the history of mankind has started with a somewhat well-crafted plan. After you've done this well-crafted plan, you have to understand this will be a big change, and you have to be prepared for some conflicts and some objections, right? So hopefully, if you guys have polished some of your sales skills over time, you're ready to handle that. If not, get ready, write down your objections as you run into them, and have a prepared conversation piece around all of those, right? Just sales 101. Stick to that. And lastly, if you feel like you're absolutely stuck and you don't know where to go, SureWeb has plenty of resources to talk about this. We have this presentation. We have other documentation. We have a lot of experts. We're continually trying to position ourselves as a business advisor for MSP. It's not just the place where you go to buy stuff from, right? So take advantage of these. Utilize this with your account manager. You get a lot of value out of it. So
Yeah,
again,
use this as training wheels.
that's what we do best. So please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're more than happy to continue this conversation. So lastly, we'll open up the floor to any Q&A. I know we're running a little short in time, so we'll have to prioritize some questions, but we'd love to take some if you guys have any.
We always talk too much. I think it's mostly my fault.
So I got one from Tom. So Tom, yep, if you just take a look at the questions that I gave you, you're gonna be able to have access to the slides. You can just follow any of the links in there. If you just go to Microsoft ACM into Google, that really is the quickest way to do it if you don't wanna wait for the slides. Any other questions? Okay, great. Another one we have is, how heavily can I rely on M365 products for the security part? Anything else I need to supplement? This is a great one for you, Mr. Laflamme.
It's really all about the budget, right? Because if you're going to have, let's say, a company that has less than 300 users, if you take M365 Business Premium and you add M365 Business Voice and you add Microsoft Defender ATP, you're covered. I would be hard pressed to find something that you would still need. Like that would be the complete solution. It's your bulletproof tinted windows Cadillac Escalade.
Excellent, fantastic. So we'll grab another one. Let's see what else we have here to be like. So another question we had, which I find is interesting. So let's say hypothetically, this is partner asking, I don't specialize in any of those three things we talked about. So security, collaboration, or change management. If we had to pick one to start with, which would it be?
Hmm.
That's a tough one, but I'm kind of thinking about it right now. And my thoughts are you can chop out a lot of expertise, right? We just discussed there's professional people you can talk to, there's the P2P network at SureWeb, there's peer groups you can join. You can potentially find an expert in security and leverage them, right? Pay them for professional services, incorporate them into a deal, or you can lean on your vendors for that heavily, right? Same with collaboration tools, right? We have M365 expertise in house. That's something that you could, again, talk to a guy like Alex LaFlamme. You can talk to some of our other SMEs. You can get a lot of information. But in my point of view, the change management part, you can't buy that. You have to start doing it. So I would think that once you kind of get to that MSP level, again, I would focus on shifting to a recurring business model. But once you do, my first step, I would say, is to really approach the change management idea, because it doesn't matter what you're selling or who you're selling to, that basic framework stays the same, right?
Hmm.
So that's where I think the most value is. But Alex, I welcome a fight and a counter argument if you have one.
No, I do not. I think I think you're right, and unfortunately, I love to pick arguments with you. But but no, it's true. Like, you can rely on partners and, distributors and all of that for the security aspects, for the productivity and collaboration. But the change management, how you approach those businesses, those first impressions that you're gonna have, if you're able to split your speech, one for top down, one for end users, like those are the things that are gonna be you. Because if it's not you and you're, having somebody else stand in to do that for you, they're going to buy that person, not you. So you're not going to have that long-term relationship to be that business transformation leader for them, because you didn't helm that change, to bring the the people to the promised land. You were just one of the followers,
Yeah,
one of the lieutenants. So you're not going to get there unless you do it. And for everything, I mean, even for the change management, if you have a couple clients that you feel, would really benefit from this, and you don't know where to start yourself, we can help you get started. But this is the one part that we're just going to want to focus on getting you up to par and not doing it for you, because we really believe that, you have to lead the way. We can't be the leader for you.
definitely. Another great question we have here. Actually, I like this one a lot. This one's interesting. I feel like this is a long form essay question, which I like. It's a conversation. This will be the last one, by the way, guys. Thank you so much for the questions. Our team will respond to everything else in chat we can. How can we be sure if we're collaborating and following the right plan with the client with the given solutions today? And that's from Agnes. So fantastic question. I like that one because what I think this actually goes back to is really a lot of sales 101. So there's an old saying that they teach you in young guy sales school, especially if you are from a B2C industry like selling cars or stuff door to door for a telecom company, is to say you'll do a lot more selling with your ears than you will with your mouth, right? And the 2-to-1 ratio is key. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that equation. So what I always like to approach is that you're going to be able to really kind of figure out if you're following the right plan if you're talking to the customer, really key. So I know that as technology experts, everybody in their field, I'm guilty of this, I'm sure Alex is too, and I'm sure everyone else is that we tend to think we know what's right for the customer based off years of experience, right? Especially if you're strong in a vertical. So if you've been dealing with healthcare forever, you think, wow, like I know exactly what to do. My HIPAA compliance stack is fantastic. I got the best medical like phone service in the world. I really understand how to store data securely. I'm an expert. So people use that bias and sometimes it'll work against them, right? So you have to be really sure that you're having a frequent discussion with the client and that you're always open to change. Because the given solutions today are not going to last forever. Things change in industry so rapidly. We always lose sight because of the industry that we're in, how quickly technology can change and the pace it can. Because we're in an industry where, 10 years ago, all the stuff we're using was different, right? There was so much change that happened so quickly. We're just so used to that, and we fail to really communicate that to the end user, the prospect. So I always like to say is ask what they want and help them guide how to get there. That's the biggest focus of the collaboration
Mhm.
component. A simple question I always ask that can help is, if you had to change one thing today, Mr. Customer, that you would do so you could work better in the future, what would that be? And if you get someone just to narrow down their thinking, and again, it could be one thing you'd like to change, or it could be three, you'll get a lot of value out of that. So that's something that I always like to ask, just that one change. And you could usually use that one answer to build an entire business discussion around, right? Because again, people come to you not to buy products, they come with you to buy solutions. So you need to be prepared to ask to find out exactly what those pain points are and how to craft a solution around it.
Yeah, and to add to that, that bias that we have of like, after 3 words, we're like, oh, okay, I know exactly where this is going and what you're going to need or whatever. You have to keep repeating yourself that same mantra that we heard over 8 seasons of a great show. Well, 7 were great, not the 8th, but is you know nothing, Jon Snow. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Like, go in there and expect that you're going to learn something from them.
Exactly. Very true. Yeah, guys, so unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We ran a little bit over. Again, from Sherwood team over here, we'd like to thank you guys so much for coming and giving us some of your precious time. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for joining us in the series. I'm going to be talking with marketing. I know a lot of people asked if we can get the slides. That's a marketing decision. We'll leave that with them. I thank you again for all your time, and thank you for your very interesting questions and also your participation in the polls. All the best from Team SureWeb, and we hope if you're celebrating July 1st or July 4th, you have a fantastic holiday weekend coming up, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Yep, likewise. Thanks, everyone.